Hello, my name is Marco van Stuykenburg and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Drillster. Drillster is a company that develops educational technology. We have developed an adaptive learning application and also a methodology, a different way to develop, anchor and retain knowledge, awareness and skills. Our application is used by many airline customers and also by companies for which accurate and top-of-mind competences are crucial and for which the lack of those competences can be catastrophic. For example, for railway companies, the army, hospitals, the police. And in the Netherlands, companies like KLM and Transavia managed to get approval from the authorities to replace their yearly recurrent safety exams with the more sustainable way of learning of the Drillster app. The main reason why companies like Air France, KLM, Shell or Vodafone were looking for other ways of learning and certification is that they realized that their existing programs had only a temporary impact. During and shortly after the time that people finished a training or certification, they realized that they had forgotten most of what they learned. And one of the most important reasons why they seem to have forgotten what they learned is that traditional learning programs use traditional learning methods. People attend a classroom training, watch a video, read a manual or click through an e-learning module. But after having read, heard or watched information, it's not sure if people have correctly understood the learning material, if they can memorize and reproduce it and apply it on the job whenever that is needed in the future. And competences decline if they are not maintained. This is because of the famous forgetting curve. As you can see in this graph, if we do not process what we read, hear or see today, we will lose up to 80% in 1 week. In other words, if someone finishes a course or a certification test today, it is very likely that that person has already lost most of the acquired skills by the time that these skills need to be applied on the job. The forgetting curve has won. No behavioral change has taken place. And this can be really alarming if you think about a pilot that has to make an emergency landing. There is no time to look up information on a mobile phone. Knowledge and skills need to be top of mind and accurate. If not, the consequences can be huge. Or think about a surgeon that has to do a critical operation. If the surgeon has not overcome the forgetting curve, we have to fear for the life of the patient. It's for that reason that we created Drillster 10 years ago. How can we make learning different? How can we fight the forgetting curve and make sure that knowledge, awareness and skills will stick? How can we make sure that each employee is always prepared to correctly perform their demanding jobs? And we found the solution in the combination of neuroscience, artificial intelligence and big data. And that sounds very complex, but actually the Drillster way of learning is very easy, efficient and fun for the end user. So let me explain how the Drillster way of learning works. First of all, information is split up in small pieces. We call it chunking or microlearning. Why is that efficient? Well, if the learning modules are small, it invites people to learn if they have 5 minutes or 10 minutes available. So if someone is in the train to go to the airport or when someone has 10 minutes while being in the room at a destination, they can learn. And the more the learning is spread out over time, the more transformation from the short-term to the long-term memory, so the more people will memorize. Also, if instructional designers need to design a training using microlearning, then they're forced to focus on the key essentials of a learning only. In a microlearning module, there's no place for minor details, and this makes sure that the right knowledge will be anchored and retained by the users. But as I explained before, just learning by watching, reading or listening is a very passive way of learning. So the actual learning takes place in a different way. The actual learning takes place by responding to questions, scenarios, dilemmas or problems. It's the effort that someone needs to make to recall information from memory that causes a stronger and more durable learning effect. So effort in learning is really key to efficiency. The stronger the effort that someone needs to make to come up with an answer, the more he learns, so the more information will be flowing from the short-term to long-term memory. Assessment-based learning also allows us to measure on a detailed level if people do already master specific knowledge or not. And if we measure that there is a knowledge gap, we can immediately fix it by presenting immediate feedback. Here we also apply a concept from the cognitive sciences, which means that in the few seconds after having responded incorrectly to an answer, the brain is more open to process and store the remedial information. If that same information would be presented an hour or a day later, the brain would not be open to receive that remedial information and the learning would not be effective. So immediate information, immediate feedback is key to efficient learning. And then there is smart repetition. Depending on the correct and incorrect answers that someone gives, the algorithm that's underlying this application will automatically present questions that were incorrectly answered more frequently than those questions that were correctly answered. Could be exactly the same question or a similar, an equivalent question. We also apply spaced repetition, which means that we put an increasing time interval between each repetition. And why do we do that? Because after someone has answered a question on a specific knowledge element, the forgetting curve starts doing its work. And the more time elapses, the more the forgetting curve has done its work. So the stronger the effort that the learner needs to make to come up with the right answer. And again, the stronger the effort, the stronger the learning impact and the more durable the learning is. But again, the forgetting curve is a fact of life, and now comes the real trick. The Drillster application can calculate how and when knowledge and competences decline if they are not maintained. So the learning history is used and predictive analytics are applied to calculate for each individual user and each individual theme the forgetting curve. And this enables organizations to set a minimum standard, a minimum level of knowledge that people need to maintain throughout the year. So rather than learning and then forgetting everything and then starting learning from scratch 11 months later for the yearly recurrent exam, Drillster can guarantee that all employees maintain their knowledge and skills throughout the year. And this makes sure that everybody has the right skills to rightly perform their demanding jobs whenever that is needed throughout the year. The airline industry is also characterized by the many changes in protocols, procedures, products, and often people are being informed about the change, but the change is not anchored and retained. So it's not sure that they all understand the change and that they can apply it on the job. The Drillster application also has a smart mechanism that ensures that content can be added or modified or changed in the backend. That leads to a recalculation of the proficiency of each individual user. Typically, the proficiency will decline, which leads to a trigger, a notification being sent to the end users, inviting them to come back and brush up on their knowledge. So a very easy way and an efficient way to not only inform people about change, but to also anchor that change. Our application is being used in sectors for which accurate and top-of-mind knowledge is crucial, or for which the lack of that knowledge can be catastrophic. This no doubt counts for the airline industry that successfully uses the Drillster application for themes like dangerous goods, initial and recurrent flight safety training, type rate training, etc. I would now like to present you two cases, those of KLM Cargo and Transavia Airlines. KLM Cargo used a traditional certification program for all freight employees. Face-to-face training was followed by an exam to be certified or recertified each year. And the problem that KLM experienced is that the more time elapsed after a certification moment, the more knowledge gaps were experienced among the employees and the more mistakes were made when people were at work. And for this reason, KLM Cargo started to use the Drillster app and the Drillster methodology. Already in the first year, KLM Cargo clearly saw that people had the right knowledge and skills year-round and not only in the few months after the certification. And consequently, they invited the authorities to look at their project, and after 2 years, the authorities gave approval to replace the yearly recurrent exam with the Drillster way of learning. And meanwhile, many more departments of KLM use the Drillster app, including staff in the cabin, the cockpit, ground services, engineering and maintenance, and also the employees of Air France. Transavia Airlines had a similar process for the yearly recurrent prof check of their pilots, and for the theoretical part an exam had to be prepared and passed in order to be certified for another year. And after having seen the impact of the Drillster app in the KLM organization, Transavia also started to roll out the Drillster app for the preparation of the recurrent exams. In less time, the pilots were better prepared to pass the exam at first attempt. Also, Transavia started to involve the authorities, and meanwhile they have the approval and they have replaced the annual recurrent test with the more sustainable way of learning of Drillster. The reporting that is provided on the year-round proficiency forms an important input during audits. And at Transavia, the Drillster app is meanwhile also being used by other departments, including cabin, ground services, engineering and maintenance. I hope that this presentation has given some inspiration on how innovative ways of learning can improve employee performance and improve flight safety and efficiency of operations. For more information, please do not hesitate to contact my colleague Adrian Macias or myself. Thank you very much for your attention.